have you ever been, tracking your own fitness numbers, maybe from your smartwatch or your annual checkup,
Uh-huh.
and you see a number that just, well, it seems to drift a bit. One year it's a little higher, maybe the next it's slightly lower.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're kind of left wondering, is that a real change in me, or is it just the measurement doing its own little dance?
That's such a relatable scenario. And it really gets at something fundamental in health and fitness, which is measurement reliability.
Exactly.
And today, we're actually taking a deep dive into that whole concept, but we're focusing specifically on hand grip strength.
Okay, hand grip strength seems simple enough, right? Just how strong your squeeze is.
Well, yes and no. It is about the squeeze, but it's actually a really foundational part of physical fitness tests all over the world.
Ah, okay.
And it's also proving to be a valuable biomarker for long-term health outcomes.
Yeah.
We see it used to assess physical capability in basically everyone, kids, adolescents in school, all the way up to middle-aged and older adults. It's even used sometimes as a diagnostic tool for conditions like sarcopenia, that's age-related muscle loss and frailty.
Wow. Okay. So it's a pretty important indicator then.
Definitely. And because it's seen as so vital, it often gets measured regularly, frequently on an annual basis.
Makes sense.
But here's the real puzzle we're looking into today. How consistent or how reliable are these hand grip strength measurements when you track them over longer periods, like year after year?
Right. Can we actually trust that if the number changes from one year to the next, it's a genuine change in strength? Or are we just seeing, I guess, the normal ups and downs of the test itself?
Precisely. That's the core question. And that's where our deep dive really kicks off.
Okay, so to help us figure this out, we're leaning on some really interesting and actually quite recent research.
That's right.
Our main source for today's deep dive is a study titled Longitudinal Stability of the Hand Grip Strength Measurements in University Students.
Yes. And this research was published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. It's in volume 24, pages 707 to 711. The online publication date is quite fresh, September 1, 2025.
Oh, wow. Very current then.
Indeed. And the authors are a collaborative team. Takashi Abe, Scott J. Dankel, Yoshimitsu Kohmura, Jeremy P. Loenneke, and Koya Suzuki. It's exactly the kind of rigorous work we need for this kind of question.
So our goal today is really to get under the hood, understand what makes these annual hand grip measurements consistent or maybe inconsistent.
Yeah, what factors influence that stability?
Right. We want to know what makes those numbers tick or wobble using the data from this big study. It's about figuring out if the numbers we track really tell the story we think they do about our physical health.
And to do that properly, it probably helps to quickly frame what we actually mean by reliability here. It's key to understanding their findings.
Good idea. So reliability. In simple terms, it's just if I measure the same thing over and over, am I going to get pretty much the same result?
Basically, yes. It's about consistency. How much confidence can we put in the numbers we get?
Okay.
And the study looks at reliability in two main ways. First, there's what they call absolute reliability.
Absolute reliability.
Think of this as the consistency of one person's score over time. Like how much might your individual hand grip score naturally bounce around between tests, even if your actual strength hasn't really changed.
Ah, okay, the individual wiggle room.
Exactly. And the researchers used some specific stats to measure this, like the standard error of measurement, SIMO and minimal difference, or MD.
Okay, SCM and MD. Can you give us a quick sense of what those actually tell us intuitively?
Sure. So SCM, the standard error of measurement, think of it as the typical noise or the sort of inherent variability you'd expect around anyone's true score.
Yeah.
It's just a natural fluctuation in measurement.
Right. Nothing's perfectly precise.
Exactly. Then minimal difference, or MD, builds on that idea. It essentially tells us the smallest change in a score that is probably more than just that random noise.
So it suggests a real change.
Likely, yes. A change bigger than the MD probably reflects a genuine shift in whatever you're measuring. So absolute reliability is really useful when you're comparing someone's score against, say, a health standard, or trying to see if their personal number has truly changed.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so that's absolute reliability, focusing on the individual score. What's the other angle they looked at? You said there were two types.
Right. The other is relative reliability. This one looks at how well an individual maintains their rank or position within a group over time.
Ah, so like if I'm in the top 10% this year, am I still likely to be in the top 10% next year?
Exactly that. And the study points out something really important here. Most of the previous research on hand grip reliability, it tended to look at really short time frames between tests, often less than 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Not very long.
Not at all. So this new study is significant because it fills a big gap by looking at annual measurements, which, let's face it, is how these tests are often done in the real world, like in annual physicals or school fitness testing.
That's a really good point. And speaking of the real world, the study itself sounds pretty impressive in scale.
Oh, it is.
You said it's a secondary analysis from a project called the JFit Plus study in Japan.
That's right, at Juntendo University. And this wasn't a short-term thing. They've apparently been compiling fitness test results since 1973.
Wow, since 1973. That's incredible. Decades of data.
It's a phenomenal data set. And for this specific analysis on hand grip strength, they looked at over 3,600 university students.
Okay.
These students were tested annually over their 4 years at university. So it's a strong longitudinal design, letting them see patterns over time.
And how did they measure the grip strength?
They used a standard tool, a calibrated Smedley hand dynamometer. Interestingly, they started with an analog version, but switched to a digital one from 1996 onwards.
Ah, and you hinted that difference might actually matter.
It turned out to be quite relevant, yes. The protocol itself was standard. Stand up straight, arms down, squeeze twice with each hand, and they took the average of the best score from the left and right hand.
Gotcha. And just to paint a picture of these students, average age was about 18.
Yeah, 18.1 years on average at baseline, average height around 170 centimeters, average body mass about 64 kilograms.
And their strength, just ballpark.
For context, the first-year males averaged about 46.4 kilograms of grip strength, and the females averaged 30.0 kilograms. So typical young adult values.
Okay, so we've set the stage. We know what reliability means. We know about this huge study. What did they actually find? What's the big news here? Let's start with the time aspect. That year-to-year tracking. How reliable is it?
Right, this is probably one of the most practical findings. What they discovered was that the 1-year longitudinal reproducibility was significantly better than the reproducibility they saw at 2 years and 3 years.
Okay, so measuring yearly is more consistent than measuring every 2 or 3 years. That makes intuitive sense, I suppose.
It does. And interestingly, they didn't find much difference between the 2-year and 3-year reliability. It seems the drop-off happens mainly after that first year.
Got it. Do they have numbers to back that up, like that minimal difference thing you mentioned?
Yes, they do. The minimal difference, or MD, remember, that's the threshold suggesting a real change, was 7.70 kilograms for the 1-year interval.
7.7 kilograms.
Oh. But that number jumped up to 8.33 kilograms for the 2-year gap, and was very similar, 8.35 kilograms for the 3-year gap.
So what does that 7.7 kilograms for 1 year actually mean for someone tracking their numbers, like in percentage terms?
That's the crucial part. It means, practically speaking, you needed to see a change of roughly 18% compared to your previous year's value, just to be confident it was a real change over that 1 year.
18%? That sounds like quite a lot.
It is, and for the 2 or 3 year intervals, that required change bumps up slightly, closer to about 20%.
Wow. Okay. So this really puts those annual numbers into perspective. Reliability seems to decrease as the time gap gets longer.
That's the clear message, and it lines up with other research comparing short versus long test intervals. Time matters for consistency.
So if I'm tracking my grip strength every year and I see, say, a 5% dip, I probably shouldn't freak out and think I'm suddenly losing all my strength.
Exactly. Based on this data, a 5% change is well within the expected noise or variability of the measurement over a year.
It's more likely just the measurement doing its little dance, like we said at the start.
Precisely. Understanding these thresholds, like that roughly 18–20% mark, is really key for proper interpretation.
Okay, that's a huge takeaway on time. But what about the people themselves? Did they find differences between males and females in how reliable these grip tests were?
Good question. And the answer was a bit nuanced, actually. It depended on how they looked at reliability.
Oh, how so?
Well, when they looked at something called the percentage of coefficient variation, or perceive, which gives you a sense of relative error, like how much variation there is compared to the average score.
Okay.
Reliability looked better in males. They had a lower perceive than females.
So males were relatively more consistent.
Based on that metric, yes. However, when they looked at absolute error, the actual difference measured in kilograms, females actually had lower absolute error values than the males.
Wait, how does that work? Lower absolute error for females, but better percentage reliability for males. That sounds like a contradiction.
It does seem paradoxical at first glance,
Right.
But think about it this way. Males in this study had, on average, about 55% greater absolute hand grip strength than females.
Right, significantly stronger overall.
So even if the percentage of measurement variation is fairly similar between the sexes, or maybe even slightly lower percentage-wise for males, that percentage applied to a much larger base number, male strength, result in a larger absolute difference in kilograms.
Ah, I see. So a similar proportion of variation means more kilograms of variation if your starting point is way higher.
Exactly. Females starting with lower absolute strength might have slightly higher relative variation, temp to CV, but that still translates to a smaller difference in actual kilograms. The researchers noted the slightly higher per CV in females is still a bit puzzling, but likely linked to their lower absolute values.
That clears it up. It really depends on whether you're looking at the percentage change or the actual kilogram change.
Okay. What about the equipment? You mentioned they switched from analog to digital dynamometers.
Yeah,
Did that affect reliability?
it absolutely did. The findings were pretty clear. The reliability values were significantly better for the digital hand grip device compared to the older analog one.
Okay, so digital is better. Why might that be?
The paper suggests a likely reason, and it's quite practical. The old analog displays usually showed the results in 1 kilogram steps.
Right, like looking at an old bathroom scale needle.
Kind of, yeah. Whereas the digital displays showed the results with much finer precision down to 0.1 kilogram increments.
10 times more precise.
Exactly. And that higher precision in the digital readout likely contributes to more consistent, more reliable measurements over time. You're getting a more exact number each time. Makes sense. Now, here's something I think many of us might just assume. Athletes. People who train hard, focus on physical performance. You'd think their strength measures would be more consistent, more stable year to year, right?
That's a very logical assumption. You'd expect training to lead to more locked-in or consistent strength levels.
Yeah. So did sports participation affect reliability in this study?
Well, this was actually one of the more surprising findings. The study found no evidence that being involved in sports influenced the longitudinal reliability of their hand grip strength measurements.
Really? No difference at all between athletes and non-athletes in terms of consistency?
Apparently not, according to this data. It suggests that even for people with, significant athletic backgrounds, the variability in their hand grip score from year to year was pretty similar to those who weren't athletes.
Huh. That's counterintuitive. Any ideas why?
The paper mentions that hand grip strength in adults is generally reported to be less affected by specific physical activity or training compared to other fitness measures. So maybe it's just a more general marker that has its own inherent variability regardless of training status? Or perhaps the measurement noise itself is just a constant factor across different groups? It definitely makes you think.
It really does. Okay, so we've unpacked a lot from the study. Let's bring it back to the listener. Why should you listening right now care about how stable hand grip measurements are over, say, a year?
Yeah, this isn't just academic. These findings have real practical value for anyone using hand grip strength as an indicator. Whether you're a coach looking at athletes, a doctor monitoring a patient, or just, tracking your own health journey.
Right.
This study gives us solid data on how consistent these annual measurements actually are, specifically in young adults.
Yeah.
But the most actionable insight, the real aha moment, I think, is that threshold we talked about.
The 20% number.
Basically, yes. If you're tracking your hand grip strength year over year, you generally need to see a change of at least approximately 20% from your previous measurement to be reasonably confident that it reflects a real change in your underlying strength.
And not just that measurement wobble.
Exactly. Anything less than that is quite likely just the normal variability. Knowing that 20% figure is vital for not overinterpreting small changes you might see in your own data.
That's an incredibly useful rule of thumb. Okay, so let's quickly recap the main things we've learned today.
Sounds good.
We saw that the time gap between tests really matters. Yearly measurements are more reliable than waiting 2 or 3 years.
Right. We also saw that sex differences in reliability are a bit complex. Males might show better relative consistency, females lower absolute error, likely due to baseline strengths differences.
And the tools matter too. Digital dynamometers seem to provide more reliable readings than the older analog ones.
Definitely. And then there was that surprise finding. Being an athlete, surprisingly, didn't seem to make your year-to-year grip strength measurements any more consistent.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
But the big takeaway for practical use is that 20% threshold. You need about a 20% change to confidently call it a real shift in strength over a year or more.
So, thinking about all this, It kind of raises a bigger question, doesn't it? If even something as seemingly basic as grip strength has this built-in variability over time and needs a pretty big shift to confirm a real change,
Right.
what does that tell us about how we interpret other health or fitness data we might track annually? Maybe things from wearables or other checkup results.
And that's a fantastic point. It really encourages us, I think, to look beyond just the raw numbers we see on our dashboards or reports.
Yeah, dig a bit deeper.
Right. To understand the science behind the measurement itself. To acknowledge that pretty much every number we track has some degree of inherent wiggle room or variability. It's not just about the number, but what that number truly represents, noise and all.
A really important reminder.
And if this discussion has sparked your interest, we absolutely recommend reading the full article for even more detail. Again, it's Longitudinal Stability of the Handgrip Strength Measurements in University Students by Abe, Dankel, Kohmura, Loenneke, and Suzuki, published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
Definitely check that out if you want the full picture. And of course, for more deep dives into fascinating research like this, exploring the science behind health, fitness, and more surprising facts, make sure you follow our channel.
And turn on those notifications.
That way you won't miss out on our next